We'd like to call the Traffic Commission to order. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have one item for the Traffic Commission this evening. The request is for street closure, AKG's 100-year celebration. AKG is requesting permission to bring in heavy equipment to the AKG 100-year celebration, which we held September 14th at Patton Young Park. AKG is in the process of confirming the specific equipment that will be on display at this time. It is requested that the 400 and 500 blocks of South Edgerton be closed from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. with no vehicles parking on either side in order to display this equipment during the celebration. Should the equipment setup not require both blocks on the day of the event, the closure will be modified as necessary. As of the meeting, we are uncertain what equipment they are going to be able to bring.
Oh, you want to come up?
Public safety's concern on this would be, at one point, we were talking a tracked vehicle, what they're going to have and what that would do to the road surface.
State your name, please, so that everyone can.
My name is Carol Van Eyck. I work for AKG.
Okay.
And right now we have a street cat has confirmed a 2019 IH 8250 combine. And it's about 480 horsepower. It's 46,979 pounds. And then the second one that we have confirmed is the CTX 100 skid steer. That one is coming from Sioux Falls, but they're going to haul it. The owner will do it. And the one here in Mitchell, he's thinking about if he can drive it around town or here to bring it to the park. That's all I had.
How wide is the combine? Is it gonna be a head of the combine, or the whole combine?
The whole combine,
With a corn head or a real head, or what's
the corn.
corn head?
Hmm.
And how wide?
It is 12 feet 10 inches to 13 feet to 10 inches.
So it's just a little over the standard width of 12 feet,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what we have for now. So if we have any updates, I can send it to Cindy, and they can let you know, guys.
All right.
Okay.
We thought you were JP sitting where you were, that's why.
Oh, no.
I've got a couple questions, just a second. I happen to live in one of the 3 houses that is impacted by this. I live right across the street from that park.
Okay.
So closing down those 2 blocks, and there was a family reunion at that park yesterday, and 34 cars were parked in those 2 blocks. So if you close those 2 blocks, you're going to lose 34 parking spots at least, and maybe more. If you also close those 2 blocks, you lose access to the pavilion without taking all the material 3/4 of the way across the park from Anderson Street. So with that, I don't know if you're going to cater in food and all that type of stuff, but if the streets are, if that's closed and that equipment is blocking those streets, you won't be able to get, it'll be much more difficult for you to get the food to the pavilion for your party. I just want to make sure you're aware of what closing those 2 blocks is going to cost, because in looking at the events that are held there, almost 90% of the people park in those 2 blocks to get to the pavilion. That's the prime parking spot for everything that goes on there. The other question, and I visited with my neighbors, there's 3 of us that have driveways that exit onto Edgerton. So we have there's no alleys, we have no other way to get on the street. So we have to be able to get in and out of our residences. And so the equipment can't block it completely off, or people can't park around the equipment and block our access to get in and out to our houses. So I'm not sure how the equipment's going to be placed for that. So those are concerns. I have no problem doing it. It's part of one day. My neighbors didn't have a problem doing it, but there's some logistics things that AKG is going to have to figure out, because if these things block, and I don't know who's catering or whatever, but you're not going to be able to get people there without going the long way around on the park, and maybe that's okay.
Corona Village is doing our food for them.
Okay? And so do they know that they won't be able to drive up to the close spot on the pavilion if those streets are closed? Or are you going to allow them to drive up? And if you're going to allow some people to drive up, who's going to decide who gets to drive up and who doesn't?
Well, I think it will be just the food because that's part of the celebration too. But then all employees can park around the park or on the other side of the street.
So are you going to prevent them from parking by the equipment?
Yeah, yeah. We can
Okay.
let them know because we are organizing right now and we have sign-up sheets and we have invitations that we hang out to the employees and we can write it down on the
Okay.
invitations
Okay,
that
I-
those blocks are
just-
going to be closed.
Just want you to make sure of how things usually happen at that park. So,
Yeah. But thank you because I never thought about that.
okay. Are there concerns about the weight? I mean, that's,
Mr. Croce?
No, I think, did you say 46,000?
Yeah, that combined is 46,979 and the skid steer is 2,958 pounds.
No, at 46, I think we're okay.
so if it drives to there and parks, we're
Yes.
good?
Yes.
Okay. And Kyle, I will mention, I did visit with my neighbor, and he was fine, okay, because it's part of one day, and as long as he can get out, but he was wondering when the curb's going to be replaced from where they, from when they put the new fire hydrant in.
Yeah, we are, that is on our schedule.
Okay.
so, Yep.
With that, I'll make motion to approve the request.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Have a motion, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Call City Council to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Resurrection Lutheran. Not here. Okay, roll call, please.
Sabers. Here. Rice.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle.
Here.
Barrington. Allen.
Here.
Charts. Here. Smith.
We have a quorum. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to remove? Okay. Entertain a motion.
Approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Allen.
Just
Hang
hold on a second.
Hold on, you're coming. We're not going to forget you.
Stephanie, did you want to comment on your handout on sales tax, or Michelle?
First and second penny sales tax through July compared to the same time period last year is down 5.18%. And third penny sales tax through July is up 1.2% over the same period last year.
And then on your desk, I did give you the sheet that we look at for forecasting how that could potentially impact the city throughout the year. And if you look at the top with the first and second penny sales tax, if you look at last year or even 2017, we would be slightly short of budget, about 180,000. But if you look at the 5 through the 15-year average, we'll meet or be at that. We do still have $250,000 earmarked in contingency for any shortfalls in revenue. And then down below on the entertainment tax collections, you can look at the projections based on the previous years, and all of the forecasts show that we would meet or exceed this year's budget, in varying from $2,000 over budget to about $100,000, depending on what the last quarter is really a large collection time frame for us, so that's really going to make the biggest difference.
Mr. Croce, did you want to make a comment on the bids? Or was that?
Yes, sir.
Did I say I was going to do
Schedule.
that? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, so in order to expedite the advertising, we put a schedule together, and so we didn't have time to get it in front of the council for set the date. But we're looking to advertise for the landscaping. I believe it's Thursday, August 22nd. And then come back to the council for approving the bid opening for Thursday, September 5th. And then we'll hold that bid opening on September 5th as council approves.
So you'll see that listed on future agendas. We're just notifying council since we missed the agenda cutoff timeline for setting the date to open the bids.
But we did want to leave enough, but we wanted to have at least 14 days to advertise.
Okay.
That's for the landscaping on Birch Street.
Correct.
Right.
And if you remember, the DOT gave us a credit on the project because they removed some of the concrete, and then we rolled the funds from that credit from the 2018 budget into the 2019 budget. So we have money budgeted. We'll see how the
Right, so the landscaping in the median actually starts from just south of Spruce Street and extends to, let's see.
K.
Right, K on, right, all the way down to K, not in the median, but on the sides of the street, the trees on the sides of the street.
There's trees on both sides of the street lining the right away from K down to, I can't remember the name of that other one, right by the truck stop. And then it's the plantings in the center median where you see there was dirt, now there's some weeds there. but
Does this
those-
put the Mitchell sign in also?
No, that's separate. That'll be a separate project for that. And actually, we're not doing a sign per se, but there will be some kind of a feature item in one of those center islands that is the closest on the north side of the overpass.
So there was some concrete work that was done out there, so was this redesigned or something
Yes, it
wrong?
was.
Or what happened?
So the DOT had some comments and concerns from residents about the line of sight on the left turn lanes, both left turn going into the I-90 truck stop and going into the other gas station. So they looked at it and they shifted the turn lane, the left turn lane, southbound going into the gas station over, so you'd have a better line of sight. Sometimes it's difficult when you have the big trucks that are turning left into the I-90 to see past that and see the oncoming traffic, so they shifted it.
So they moved it over a little bit so you can actually see around the truck.
Right.
It wasn't good.
Okay. Further discussion? Mr. Larson, come on up.
Hey, Stephen Larson. I have a question about the appointment of Mark Fox to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm just not sure if it's standard procedure to have the head of the Mitchell Area Development Corporation who...
Mr. Heisel served on it for about 20 years.
Okay. It just seemed odd to me that the person who has a very vested professional interest in everything being zoned and planned in this town also has a vote in it. And while it might not be a conflict of interest...
If he finds it to be a conflict of interest, they recuse himself from the vote.
Right.
But obviously, it's planning and zoning, and he's part of planning, and he makes a very good sense to be in that position.
Right. It was more the separation of powers was my concern. I wasn't sure if that had been. I wasn't sure if Heisel had been on it before.
Yeah, he served for about 20 years on it.
Okay. Just want to make sure we had unreproachable responsibility. All right. That's what I have. Thanks.
Yep, all right. Further discussion? Anybody else in the audience wish to address it? Okay, roll call, please.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington. Allen.
Aye.
Charts. Smith. Sabers. Rice.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens' input. If you need to address the mayor and members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Does anybody wish to address the council?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Okay. Stephen Larson again. I've missed a couple of meetings, especially the special meetings, of which we've had 3 over the span of a month. Just something about all the special meetings. Was wondering, can we have, or can it be put in the agenda, or at least spoken at the beginning, why it is necessary for special meetings, especially when they're super short notice, like 8 a.m. on a Friday. I don't know who all here is capable of getting off at 8 a.m. on a Friday on 3 days' notice.
I believe they're all 24-hour notice, aren't they? At least 24 hours.
Right,
That's
at least
required by
24.
law.
Right. But it's just what is so necessary that we have to have a special meeting rather than waiting the 10 days or so. for it to make a normal meeting of the city council, because I am unable to get off at 8 a.m. on a Friday, and especially on only 3 days' notice or a single day's notice. And so I just don't know if that can be something that's spoken as to the urgency that requires a special
That's
meeting.
why we hold them, is because it's urgent that we get the information or whatever we're deciding at that time done as quickly as we can.
Right.
So if we have the ability to hold them, we certainly will hold them.
Right.
We don't try to have special meetings. It's only if absolutely necessary.
Right, and so if just a little more explanation could be given, because like the last one that was had, the Casey's building, or the former Casey's lot that was sold, or at least was approved to be sold. And then the Third and Main building belonged to Mr. Finnell, which has been dragged through city council for years and through the paper for years, and then was resolved in a 20-minute special city council meeting at 8 a.m.
Oh,
on a
no, it
Friday
wasn't
morning.
resolved in a 20-minute special council meeting. Believe me, it took weeks to get all the things done, and what we needed to do is keep the steps moving so we didn't stagnate what was happening with the Third and Main, which was the
Right.
reason we had the special meeting.
Right, and so it's just the lack of citizens' input for an issue that had been dragged for years in front of us, and then it was, because that was
Weren't
all
there,
done in executive
I guess I have the
sessions
question, weren't there years of citizen input that were possible on that?
for the individual plans as they came and went, but the last resolution was done in executive sessions that we had no visibility on.
Ooh.
Oh, no, 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 no. It was all done in
Nothing was ever
open
done
meeting.
Executive session. Go ahead.
Okay,
Nothing was ever decided in executive session. Those are only to discuss legal matters with the attorney.
okay.
So-
Then I must have been missing something, because I tried to keep up on every time that came up, so my apologies there.
We had a lot of executive sessions, there's no doubt about that, but there's nothing decided in those. And I always announce at the end of the meeting if we're going into executive session, if there's going to be some decision made after that executive session or not.
Right,
So,
And a lot of those executive sessions were because we were in an open contract year with our 3 unions, so we were doing labor negotiations
Right.
most of the beginning of the year.
yep, okay. It's just, yeah, I tried to be present at those when I am in town, and so it's just very difficult on the short notices, but any words that could be spoken to, things like that, that is what I had. Thank you very much.
Just for anyone else that might be in that situation too, we do, people might not be aware that we do also live stream to the YouTube channel. So, and we do often have people that will pose questions via email during the meeting too. So I just want to make that as a opportunity if someone can't make a shorter notice meeting.
and are you able to live stream?
Generally, yes. What email address?
Mine.
Okay.
You should have mine.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
I had one comment for
Okay.
council. On July 22nd, during one of our special meetings, when we were talking about a settlement agreement with Fennell, the second item on the agenda was the sales tax bonds refinancing, and we needed to get that resolution passed so that we could let the 20-day, excuse me, my mouse is not working now, 20-day notice, lovely, hold on, notice expire. And I just wanted to report to the council, when we were looking at the refinancing of those bonds, originally, I think the first numbers Michelle and I got were close to 300,000. At the time of our meeting, we were at 445. We were able to lock in a rate this last week at 2.11%. So the total savings after the cost of issuance came in at 524,977. So it went up another $80,000 from that meeting that we looked at what the estimated savings were.
Thank you.
I got one quick one. We just got done with the state amateur baseball 12-day tournament out there at the Ball Diamond where I think Jocko told me there's over 60,000 people in the 12 days that went through the gates. And our grounds crews, or our park and rec crew couldn't have done a better job with the field. It looked as good the first day as it did the last day. And those guys worked hard. I know Nathan wasn't out there to see his guys working, but they did a tremendous job out there. The commissioners all said how good they did. And that's one of the reasons we get it back every year. Getting 60,000 people here in a 12-day period. So it's hats off to Dan and Jeremy for a good job that they did keeping everything good. They were out there one night, I know, till 2 o'clock in the morning, back again at 6. And Jeff and Marty, and a lot of guys were out there, and the field looked really good. And there was a lot of good compliments on it.
Well, I heard on the radio last night, I was listening to Tim Smith at the post-game show, and he said that if, he had Dale Weber, I believe, from the commissioner from baseball, and he said if I could give a MVP to anybody, it'd be the Mitchell Park and Recs for what they did for that tournament, how good it looked for the 12 days.
That's a nice
It was on-
compliment.
And that was on, from Dale Weber on KMIT last night. I thought it was very good.
Tell the crew,
So tell
thank you
your
very
crew,
much. We
Nathan, they
appreciate,
did
we like to hear those things.
I will do that. We're very proud of them. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else wish to address the council? Okay, committee reports. Chief?
The Traffic Commission met tonight at 6 PM with one item on the agenda. The item on the agenda was a request from AKG for a street closure for their 100-year celebration. They were requesting on September 14th that the 400 and 500 blocks of South Edgerton be closed from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. with no vehicles parked on either side for display of equipment during their celebration. Should there be a need to change that with not enough equipment, that the closure would be modified. They had a couple of questions. A representative from AKG spoke, gave a couple examples of equipment that were there. Motion was approved. We were adjourned at approximately 6:08 p.m.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearings and actions on the following alcohol licenses. On the application of Blarney Sports Bar and Grill doing business as Blarney Sports Bar for special event liquor license located at the Highland Mall, Mitchell, on December 6, 2019 for the holiday spirits.
Mayor and Council, Public Safety has no opposition to all three of the items concerning the alcohol.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Chambers, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. On application to transfer a retail on off-sale malt beverage license RV 25721 from Leisure Time Inc., doing business as The Depot, 210 South Main Street, Mitchell. The Depot Mitchell LLC, doing business as The Depot, 210 South Main Street, Mitchell. Video lottery is not included.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. On application to transfer retail on-sale liquor license RL 5763 from Leisure Time Inc., doing business as The Depot, 210 South Main Street, Mitchell, to Depot Mitchell LLC, doing business as The Depot, 210 South Main Street, Mitchell.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Do anybody in the audience wishes to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Board of Adjustment entertain a motion for the City Council to recess the Citizens Board of Adjustment. Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing on 9/3/2019. Jason and Ramey Norgard have applied for a conditional use permit to operate a family residential child care center in their home located at 1220 East Havens, Lot 103, Brendan Mobile Village, legally described as Lot 1A, located in southeast quarter 22-103-6, excluding lots PE1, PE2, and PE3. City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is zoned R4, high-density residential.
Move to set the date.
Motion by Mrs. Charks. Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing on 9/3/2019. Russell Hanson and Jamie Buckles have applied for a side yard on a corner variance of 8 feet versus 20 feet is required for the purpose of constructing a detached garage on their property located at 520 East Hanson Avenue, legally described as Lot 12, Block 42, Cooley and Guernsey Edition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property zone R2, single family. Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Reconvene the City Council. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn. The City Council reconvene regular session. Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2019-38, Special Services, Mitchell 17-2. Jessica?
This is something that we provide every year. It's an annual update. Justin updated the wording from when Carl Cook put together the agreement, so it's now updated and accurate.
I think this is something you've been doing for a very long time, but
Yes.
it had never really come to the council before. It was simply done on the mayor's desk. And this time, we're trying to get it right. Correct,
Move to
Mr.
approve the
Johnson?
agreement A 2019-38.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on Resolution R 2019-58, Dakota Wesleyan University on a petition for vacation of public right-of-way.
Mayor, with your permission, I will also kind of relate this to your next action item, which is a plat. Basically, you can kind of see in the plat area, they're identifying the boundaries of a project, and I'll let representatives of DWU talk about that. But as you can see in the plat, there, you can also see that there was an alley drawn on it, and I think they just didn't realize that there was an actual platted alley there. As well. So they're vacating the alley off the old legal description. That's why you may see that the legals may not necessarily be the right or match. It's because of the old legal description is the vacation. The next one is the plat. So that's basically what this is
This went
for.
to the Planning Commission.
Planning Commission did review this and did recommend approval of this. So with that, I'll just yield the floor to DWU to kind of talk about the project.
Mrs. Creasy, come on up.
Hey, I haven't been here for a few
State
weeks.
your name.
My name
Rank
is
and
Teresa
serial
Creasy.
number.
I work for Dakota Wesleyan University. I'm here tonight to just ask you, interesting that we found this alley down in the middle of our old football practice field that we've been running across for years, but we'd like to have that vacated. The new plat is for our new business facility. Many of you may have read in the paper that we secured a USDA loan to build this facility. And of course, you have to have a separate plat for them to hold their lien against. So we would like to plat this off for that project. That project, we will have a public groundbreaking the first Friday in October. We'd invite you to attend, and then we will be digging next spring furiously, because next spring will not be as wet as this spring. And we will head into the building of that
Got it
project.
inside.
I'm hoping. So, any questions?
No.
we got to approve both of these? Yeah, separate items though.
I will move approval of 2019-58 to vacate the alley.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-59, a plat of Lot C4 of the Dakota Wesleyan University First Edition of the City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-60, a plat of Lot 5 of D and D Carlson's First Edition, subdivision of a portion of the northeast quarter of Section 31, Township 104 North, Range 60 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Davidson County, South Dakota.
This plat was presented to the Planning Commission at their last meeting and did recommend approval. If you saw in the plat, this is the very last unplatted lot that's in that little Carlson subdivision. And my understanding is, it escapes me now, it's either Lot 4 or Lot 6 is the owner. He bought it, one of those owners bought it basically for their own, just to keep a handle on it, so.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Charks,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-61, a plat of Lot 9, Block 7, Westwood First Edition, subdivision southwest quarter of Section 16, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, this was presented to the Planning Commission at their last meeting and did recommend approval of it. This is in the vicinity of those storage facilities that are being constructed there. So you can kind of see where it's at on there. I believe that aerial there might be some activity on it since that area was taken, so.
And there will be a drainage plan on
Yes.
this, too, I believe. Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2019-62, a resolution expanding the bid number 3 board. This, in essence, the Mitchell Main Street and Beyond committee has come to us and asked us to increase their board by 2 people? Is that, am I stating that correctly? So we have to, because of the way it was written, we have to do that in city ordinance. Anything further to add, Mr. Johnson?
I just want to make clear that the Mitchell Main Street and Beyond Board and the bid number 3 board are 2 completely separate entities. So we're actually talking about the bid number 3 board, not anything to do with Mitchell Main Street itself. If you remember, the Mitchell Main Street was involved in getting that bid set up. Obviously, they have a lot of contact with the people who are a part of that bid group. So the suggestion came through them, but they're different organizations.
Are we able to approve the 2 new members as well? with
That's
this?
my question. So we're increasing it from 5 to 7 and appointing the 2 new people all in one resolution?
Correct.
Okay.
And the definition of the bid board says a minimum of 5, but it doesn't give a maximum, so this lies within the.
But my question was,
Yes, I hear you.
yeah, well, potentially one motion to increase it to 7 and another motion to appoint the people. But if
Yeah,
That's why I asked,
Yeah.
can we do it all in one? Or do
yeah,
we-
the way that I wrote it up, it's all in one
Okay.
resolution.
Okay.
Motion approved.
second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second reading of ordinance O 2019-12, U-turns in the city limits. Now, before we get into an emotion on this, there has been some additional information, well, proposals that have come forth. No, it's still illegal, but what we were trying to do is make it legal where signage was put up. What has been brought forward now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Johnson, is they propose that we make it or change it so that it is legal and then becomes illegal wherever it's signed as such, because most people do it anyway. I guess Mr. Coster's been consulted on it. They don't really have an issue with it. The one thing that got brought up is this would make it legal as long as you're not blocking traffic to make a U-turn in Sanborn Street. So that, if you're blocking traffic or impeding traffic, that still makes it illegal. Am I correct? So you'd be able to do a U-turn anywhere as long as it's not shown as not being able to make a U-turn. But we would have to go back and rewrite the ordinance, correct?
Yeah, so what I could do if the council would prefer that option is I could bring back at the next meeting an alternative version, basically just switching the language saying that it's going to be allowed except where it's signed as prohibited. And then we'll probably piggyback off of the state law to include that language of where if you're going to do it, it has to be completed in a safe manner.
So we thought we'd throw a monkey wrench into the cogs and see how you. You like it?
So you want us to table this for 2 weeks?
I would probably just table it, and I can bring the alternative back next time, because if we're making a substantial change like this, we need to have an additional second reading on it. So if you table this for, is it 2 weeks or is it 3? So let's just say the September 3rd meeting, so I don't have to do math.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks. September.
Table it to September 3rd. I can bring back the alternative at that time.
Move to table September 3rd.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to table by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Allen. Did you have something to add to it? Okay. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries to table. Motion to adopt, we don't need that one now, do we? Because we're not adopting, tabled.
Correct.
Okay. Second reading on ordinance O 2019-14, defining appeal board for purposes of chapter 12-1 flood damage prevention. This is one of our boards that we're working on cleaning up. Mr. Johnson.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion to adopt ordinance O 29-14.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Roll call vote, please.
Barrington. Allen.
Aye.
Sharps.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Savers.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 24, second reading of ordinance O 2019-15, repealing MCC Chapter 3-5 Arts Council. Again, we're cleaning up committees and boards that really haven't met.
Motion to approve on second reading.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Motion to adopt ordinance O 29-15. Motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Any discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? Roll call.
Sharps.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Savers.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Motion
Allen.
ca-
Aye.
Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you out.
I know. You could have cut him off, but not me.
Start with A, I thought you were first. Motion carries. Second reading of ordinance O 2019-16, repealing MCC 3-8, Airport Advisory Committee. Again, this is another committee that hasn't met for a very long time, so we're going to eliminate.
You know, I just have to say, it seems like when Mel served on that committee, it seems like there were occasions when he brought things to us. Is there going to be someone who
We can
will,
still bring it to the council.
the airport?
It's just they don't meet, so there's no
Yeah.
reason to have people on a board.
Right, so
that's not
who
gonna
would
meet.
bring that to us now?
I would either Mr. Mike
Mike, Sherschlik?
Sherschlik,
Okay.
or I would imagine that.
Or Kyle? Yeah, okay.
The Wright Brothers Aviation could
Yeah.
come to Kyle and bring it
Okay.
to us.
Yeah,
Um,
I just wanted to make sure that,
It's
yeah.
just that we have a board that's not meeting. There was,
Yeah.
a long time ago, they actually had a little power and did quite a bit and met like monthly, so at that
So-
time, they were forced, but now they don't meet.
Yeah. And so there are several members that used to be on that board that I'm sure still have planes out there. They just,
They could talk to Mr.
They can
Sherschlik
talk,
or
okay.
Kyle or Wright Brothers Aviation, and
okay.
they can bring whatever
Sounds
they
good.
need
I just
to
wanted
us.
to make sure that we still
We're
have
not going to ignore the
a
airport.
vehicle
We're
for 'em.
just-
Of
yeah.
course. I just wanted to make sure they still
And
have
when
a
the
vehicle.
board was operating more frequently, they were operating under a state law that was no longer in effect.
If they were meeting regularly, it'd be a different story, but since they don't meet, there's no reason to have them.
Move to place on second reading?
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion to adopt ordinance O 2019-16. Motion by Mrs. Charks. Second by Mr. Rice. Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Roll call.
Savers. Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington. Allen.
Aye.
Sharps. Smith.
Aye.
Second reading of ordinance O 2019-17, repealing MCC Chapter 310, Museum Board. Again, same situation.
Move to adopt ordinance 2019-17.
Motion by Mrs. Charts,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Motion to adopt ordinance O 2019-17.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Rice. Discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? Roll call.
Dozier. McCardle. Barrington. Allen.
Aye.
Charts. Smith.
Aye.
Sabers. Rice.
Aye.
Motion carries. First ordinance, first reading on ordinance O 2019-18, repealing Mitchell City Code Chapter 3-6, Traffic Commission, updating references to said commission, and correcting a reference to the Traffic Division. Basically, this will move traffic into our regular city council.
Right. So I'll just kind of walk you through the individual sections here. It shouldn't take too long. You see the first section in there repeals the Traffic Commission chapter that's currently in the code. Section 2 adds a new section, and all of the provisions there that you see are basically what's currently under the Traffic Commission. So we're really just moving the language from one place to another and having the city council do all of that instead of having a separate committee to do those things. Under section 3, we've got numerous references to the Traffic Commission elsewhere in our code. So you can see at all these locations, we're going to take out the word traffic or the phrase Traffic Commission and put in the phrase City Council. Then there was one other reference to Traffic and Safety Committee, which I don't think is a thing, but we're changing that to City Council anyway. And then sections 5 and section 6 are just to clarify that the Traffic Division is part of the Public Works Department instead of the Public Safety Department.
Move to approve ordinance 2019-18 on second reading.
First reading.
First reading? Oh, gosh, of course.
All the others were second reading. Okay, we have a motion by Mrs.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Discussion and presentation by Verizon Wireless on small cell facilities.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeff Armour with my colleague here, Sarah Muley. I also have our legal counsel who worked a lot with Justin in the past on the phone by speakerphone, just in case you have any questions that we can't answer. And also our government relations specialist back here, Drew Duncan. And the reason we're here tonight is to further relationship with not only the council, but with staff. We did meet with Neil back, several months ago at this point. This stems back to small cells, and that's our job, dealing with small cells as the new technology in cities, on the city's streetscape, rather than the tower on the hill. And as part of that, Verizon is investing in the personnel capital to come out and have those discussions directly with cities as needed on a continuing basis. So tonight, what we wanted to talk briefly about is what are small cells. I know you guys have dealt with them in an ordinance back in December, and then rates and fees set in January. So that's what we wanted to re-engage with you, your council with, and also staff as we move forward in that process.
Just to add to what Jeff was talking about, we did meet with Neil back in December, and I think our position back then was, we really want to keep Mitchell on the map for small cell technology and investment. We had a position here back in December, and we'd just like to reapproach the council today to broach that topic again. And so as I guide you through here today, we're just going to go through some bare bones of what small cell technology is, obviously being judicious with everybody's time, and really the value add on an economic driver level, really embracing technology as a driver of bringing other attributes to the community, that thriving workforce, what homeowners and home buyers look for, the value to your first responders in responding to emergencies. And lastly, we're going to go through some actual deployments in the Midwest so that, we can remove the fear of the unknown, if you will, and see what some of these deployments actually look like in and around the places where we live. We're going to skip the little video for time's sake, but I'm a visual person. I don't know how everybody else is, but this is a great visual to just emphasize the fact that, to Jeff's point, you're always going to have those traditional towers on the hill. That provides that blanket level coverage. That's why your phone has bars in it today. But what we see is a need as carriers for small cell placement because data demands are increasing on a daily basis in a rate that carriers are really fighting to keep up with. So they are a bolstering to, a complement to the traditional macro tower, not a replacement of that. So like I said, that tower on the hill gives you that initial blanket coverage. When you're talking small cells, you're talking about people snapping and tweeting and downloading, all in highly densely populated areas. So we like to speak in analogies here. It'd be kind of equivalent to if your roadworks folks were looking at a 2-lane highway and you needed a 4-lane interstate, is kind of the way that you can think about the growing data demands that is putting on carriers on a daily basis. There's estimates that in the next 3 years, people's data usage is going to increase 5-fold. So what that means is that small cells will help to keep carriers keep up with that need of not only our customers, but of Mitchell's residents. Again, just some of the key takeaways. Anytime that you're looking at growing communities and what people are looking for when they're looking to make home purchases, you're looking at wireless coverage. That's what people care about in an increasing fashion. I like that statistic on the top. 75% of prospective home buyers view it as important, and of the millennial population, you're creeping up on 85 as the most important. So this is not only, like I said, a value add for our customers, but also Mitchell's residents.
And especially that last point, if I can jump in, and she's going to get to it here, the 90% of households that use cell phones for service and in complement to the household service. And why that's important? Because of 911, emergency.
Right, so jumping off of Jeff's point there, we saw it here with the floods driving up I-29 on a day-to-day basis. When people are in a mode of crisis, especially with the percentage of households, back 20 years ago, 13% of all American households were wireless only. That number is creeping up to 66%. So when you're talking about responding to your residents in matters where it's, needed most, wireless service, especially when there's increased demands, is all the more important on a public safety element. So here we just kind of touch again on the key enhancements that bolstering our existing coverage in the area will bring. And now we're going to go through the actual anatomy of a small cell. So there's varying designs when you're looking at small cells, which are fixtures that affix to existing infrastructure in the right-of-way. So typically that's on a light pole. It can be on a utility pole. It can be on a carrier-inserted pole. It really just varies, and we work with each municipality to find solutions that fit with their right-of-way management. On the left, you can see the cylindrical antenna structure. That's kind of lollipopped on the top of an existing pole. You can also see the panel design on the right-hand side, and that's more tacked on to the sides of the poles, as we can show you further on. So as I said at the beginning, I think a lot of this is fear of the unknown. Once people see what these actually look like in our streetscapes, I think there's a bit more comfort with the whole concept. I know that small cells are new for communities like Mitchell, but they're not new to us or any carrier. We've been doing these for years. So the benefit there is that, you guys have the tried and true proof in the pudding of what these actually look like all over the country. So on the San Francisco example, you can see that cylindrical lollipopped antenna example. As we navigate over to Minneapolis, in their downtown area, they opted for more of a panel design. And then again, in the Kansas City model, you can see that cylindrical antenna pop up again. These are deployments in downtown Minneapolis, again, in their downtown area and right by US Bank Stadium. And in the image to the far right, it's kind of even hard to see the small cell if you have to look closely, but that's the whole point. We like to have a reputation of having these things be hidden in plain sight, and we take a lot of pride in that.
Can I ask a quick question while you're on these pictures?
Sure.
So I noticed that all of these pictures are in cities, larger cities.
Sure.
And obviously, we're in the city limits here, but one of the challenges that we have in South Dakota is that there's so much rural area. Do the small cells, will there be applications for those rural communities that, I know we have a place south of Ethan and cell reception is not good out there. How far out do you go from the city centers?
There's no surefire black and white answer to that, but to answer your question more generally, yes, because of the technological investment of them and what they're meant to target, they are more solutions for densely populated areas, which tend to be urban areas. But I want to hit your overarching point, which is kind of, if I can rephrase, this is Minneapolis. We're a little old Mitchell, and
We are Mitchell.
And I hear your point to that regard. What I would rebut with is, there's small cells in Yankton, South Dakota. There's small cells
Are
in
there small
North Platte,
cells in
Nebraska.
Ethan, South Dakota? Are there small cells in Alexandria? Those kinds
Yeah,
of communities.
and that rural solution, we'll get there eventually. As Sarah will get into, they all take fiber. That's a main component. We have power out in those areas. We now need that fiber infrastructure. And part of what we're wanting to talk to you guys is getting that infrastructure built up so we can build out from the city focus.
So the short answer is this doesn't have anything to do with rural.
Not immediately, but you never say never, but our main focus is on the more densely populated, like Mitchell proper.
So as we explore here, again, solutions in St. Paul, the cylindrical antenna, exciting. Minneapolis and St. Paul, I don't know if anybody's been reading, have both been announced as Verizon as lit up for 5G. So we're proud of that. We have 9 cities across the network right now nationally, and we're looking to add more day by day. These are examples of deployments in Omaha, Nebraska. Again, these are the panel design. A common recurring themes that you see regardless of the city, regardless of the deployment of the antenna style. We're always matching the pole with the existing color. There's no ominous ground structures or things that would be impediments for pedestrians in the right-of-way. Any handholds are flush with the ground, so again, there's no hazards there. And we prefer unmetered power when possible, so we're only dealing with meters on the poles at a pedestrian line of sight when the pole maker basically makes us. So this is a different style. In Des Moines, you can see the armed cantenna. Again, we just work with each municipality to see what they prefer, and you'd be surprised, everybody has their own preference. And we also like to have, technical difficulties on image 1, but moving right along, we have some utility pole examples that you can see in that Las Vegas image on the right. And then there's also the possibility of a carrier inserted pole. So this is an example of a Verizon inserted pole in Bloomington.
Again, we just have a zoomed up image of the actual right-of-way so that you can see what it looks like up close.
And going back to your question there briefly, you know, part of these solutions, they're small cell solutions, and we like to say small cells are growing, which is kind of obvious lame pun, but they will get to the point when we can build out our infrastructure such that they provide that unobtrusive data need, service need, coverage need, rather than having to stick a big macro tower in. Now, we'll always need those macro towers for the foreseeable future, but if we can get fiber to a smaller town and there's a dire need with a population that makes it feasible economically, then we can serve it with a small cell, and it could eventually provide those rural solutions for data coverage. So we hope to get there. Right now, we're trying to build out where we can and where we can work with cities.
And that is exactly my question. That's exactly what I wanted to know, so thank you for that.
So we will never count it out because the technology is not going to wait for anybody. So if we can find a way that it makes financial sense and also serve the customers and the constituents, then we will do it if we can get fiber there. That said, you know, we want to meet with whoever can. That's why we're here with Mitchell today.
So lastly, you know, as Jeff and I alluded to at the beginning of our presentation, you know, we cover not only South Dakota, but Nebraska and Iowa. Our marching orders on behalf of Verizon are to get agreements and paths forward with communities such as yours so that we can make that mutually beneficial investment in your community. Right here, I just wanted to lay it out in plain numbers of what the rest of the state is at in terms of rates that they have come to an agreement with Verizon. The key thing as we're moving forward here is reasonable rates are the crux of being able to deploy it in an efficient and economical way. And when you charge the rest of the state, you know, you have equally sized Yankton. They're at a rate of about $100 by pole. And then you juxtapose that with where Mitchell's at $270. I'm sure Jeff can give the background, and I'm sure your council's dutifully advised you of all the FCC regulation that goes around this. But basically, the federal framework creates a presumption of reasonableness or a safe harbor of $270 at a national level. So that's what a court would consider reasonable, you know, from Manhattan, New York to Los Angeles, probably on the high, to, you know, I don't know, Paris, Texas on the low. And what I really wanted to, you know, demonstrate to the council here is we're trying to, as a carrier, bring this community more in line with what we're seeing in the area. And I'll let Jeff speak
before
to
everybody's
that.
eyes glaze over talking about federal regulations and FCC and all that, really, it comes down to the FCC providing that top cap. And it's based on actual fees. So it has to be how much does it actually cost the city for certain specified maintenance of these small cells after they're permitted. And what is that fee per year per pole? Now, these things aren't cheap from an investment side, and really, you know, some of the communities the size of Mitchell really see this as an economic driver because it gives you the fastest wireless speed, potentially fiber speeds, potentially in the country. So we want to boost up that 4G infrastructure so we can have that infrastructure there for the future. So the bottom line is, our ask is to work with your council, legal counsel, and also you as the council, along with Neil. We've met with them, like I mentioned before, to get in a range where we can actually deploy and make that capital investment as a company, which will boost your community. And what we're seeing on a cost basis for this area is anywhere from, well, you see zero, but the largest city in the state, it's 175. The second largest is 165. In this size of community, we're looking at an actual cost per pole per year rent for maintenance is somewhere between 85 and 100 is what we would find reasonable. So we know you've sent it based on council advice, and he was well involved with the league negotiations, and it was safe to set it at the top of the cap. Now we're asking to come to the table and see what we can work out with an actual fees basis. with that, if anybody has any questions, we would just look forward to working with you guys in the future and some type of commitment of whether we can have that discussion down the road very quickly.
And tell me again how many small cells we would have in Mitchell?
Well, part of our job that we didn't really get into for time purposes is we're the people that go out and work with the council ahead of time before our construction team and our radio frequency team says, we have dire needs in Mitchell for service, basic service. So we have to lay the groundwork and the framework to do that. Right now, it's not there yet to that point where we can because of the highest cap in the state. So that framework's not there yet. Once we get that in place, then we would look at site walks, figure out our RF needs, and invest that capital to be able to tell you in a permit process, this is on this street, this street, this street, and here's how many.
What he's saying is we're too high for price. And he wants us to come down, which.
So here's my question. If we were at, I'll pick 150, what would be the timing of small cell planning in Mitchell?
Well, 150 would put you more in line with, some of the larger cities. We'd be looking something more around 100, and that's where we would.
Okay, so follow-up question then, I infer your answer. So you're going to go talk to Sturgis and Spearfish and Vermillion and Rapid City also?
Well, that's the point where they're on the table queued up for small cell deployments. Whether they get deployed or not is above my pay grade, but it's much more palatable for us to look at as a solution pathway forward than 270.
Okay.
And let me speak to both
you.
of your underlying concerns. On a pragmatic basis, Verizon's just like any other corporation. They're looking for streamlined process and predictability of deployment. There's a lot of other anatomy that feeds into powering up a small cell. It's getting that electrical network there and that backhaul fiber there to light up to power it up. So there's months of planning and A&E costs that go into siting these things. So just like any other corporation looking to set aside capital dollars, I'm sure you guys are busy with your budget season right now for next year. Verizon's equally looking to tee things up for the next year, but they need to know that somebody's on board and that it's a predictable framework. To that point, the council enacted an ordinance back in December that mandates that carriers use a form, but there's not even a form available on the city website to use. So
That's part of our job
we're
to
trying
help you.
How many small cells are in Yankton?
Well, right now we haven't built out any new ones. There's a couple there
So even at $100, you haven't built any.
from years past. That was
What
just,
about Deadwood and Madison?
those were just,
There's no cost.
those, I can't speak to those. Those, and the Yankton one was just passed a couple months ago. But to Councilman Rice's point, that's the discussion we would like to have, and that's the direction we would like to go. And if the city draws a hard line in the sand, then we're going to have to talk about that from a corporate standpoint. But that's definitely the right line of discussion that we want to engage with.
Go ahead, Mr. Larson.
Can I just point out that we're the third largest city on that entire chart? As far as prices go, we're the third largest population town that you have on the chart there. Not one of the smaller ones.
Sioux Falls have any?
That agreement's fairly recent. Those are in the pipeline. They take about 2 years at the worst-case scenario to get lit up. So depending on the emergency of the situation or the fast-track need, it could be anywhere from really 8 to 12 months to 24. So it really varies. We're still in the infancy of the new build-out that you may have been hearing about.
Justin, way back when we approved this, was there any type of cost to the city that would be ongoing or any expense that you had anticipated? And then I also remember you coming up with an average number. Obviously, we're not going to hold to anybody, but you said you had it kind of figured out the distance for coverage of how far that would go. But just to get a general idea, are we talking 10? Are we talking 50? Or
The number of placements? I've got no idea. We've got to clarify here that they're talking about 4G service, not 5G service. The numbers that I was talking to you back then, that was for 5G, which is a lot denser network. So, as best as I could tell, you're talking less than a dozen of these in town initially.
My comment to council would be there's quite a few first-class municipalities that are missing off this list. We've got Brandon, Brookings, Pierre, Watertown. I think those would be good comparisons for us to look at what their fee schedule is. If you're interested, we can do a survey of those. I know I just talked to Vermillion. I don't think they've got their agreement finalized yet, do they?
It's been approved, yeah. It's been agreed upon. And, you know, anything is better in the 100 to 150 range than 270. So that's where we want to have that discussion.
And Justin and I met when we did this in November or December or whatever, and we just picked the FCC 270 because that was
Right.
an allowable number. I guess, to me, there's a little bit of catch-22 of, depending on what the agreement is and who owns the poles that it's put on, might have a certain cost of maintenance versus if Verizon puts in their own supplied pole.
Right, and
Those
that's,
are different cost structures as I think of them for our Public Works Department, for instance.
right. And so, most of your poles are public utility, and Vermillions are all municipal owned. So their rates are going to be a little different. So to compare apples to apples, that's a little skewed. But it has to be cost-based. It's not just we're pulling
Right,
some number.
and I'll point, the 270 we picked because that's what the FCC said was reasonable.
Right.
Now, I'll also point out that Verizon is suing the city of Rochester, New York, because Rochester, New York said you have $1,500 per year for a small cell to attach to a pole, and you have to pay $10,000 up front just to deploy any fiber without digging anything in the ground. Now, from the standpoint of reasonableness, that doesn't seem very reasonable to me, but there is some pushback from, and obviously Rochester, New York is a, multi-million
Yeah, that's
facility, and so.
And our goal is to work with cities, not to
Right.
sue cities. So we more than likely would move on to the next location on the map rather than engage in any type of litigation.
Right.
Because we want to have a partnership, not a courtroom battle.
Of the cities up there, how do you know which ones all have fiber to every household and on every street like Mitchell does?
Well, we can't speak to the fiber build out on a wireline basis for every house.
But I know what it is for Mitchell. It's every business and every house is
So our fiber needs would have to be assessed based on whether we have fiber available to rent
right.
or we need new fiber, and it depends how many poles we need and what kind of
And
build
so
out.
none of that's been done yet?
We don't have that infrastructure because we don't have a path forward because we need to have a rate discussion.
Okay. So rate discussion is first step.
That's the barrier at this point,
Okay.
and then we would like to work on that permitting process to be able to move forward.
Yeah, we could cut it down to zero, and there's no guarantee you would put anything in Mitchell today anyway.
No, but you're going to be on the map as a $0 infrastructure build, welcoming Verizon and welcoming that build of community drive that I think your community has. You have a couple, Councilman Rice knows you have a couple tech companies in town that you're very proud of and that add a lot to the community, and also colleges in the area that you feed from. So,
However, if AT&T came in and put them in for 270, I'm guessing Verizon, being competitive, would do the same thing.
we would have to assess our coverage needs at that point. And if AT&T comes in and does that, that's their prerogative. We can't speak to competitors.
No, I know, but I know you guys are very competitive, so.
We're proud of our coverage map. That said, at some point, we have to look at an allocation of resources because we're not just going out giving small cells willy-nilly. It's something that is a driven investment for each community, and it boosts that community infrastructure.
We revisit fees we charge every year, right?
Annually, correct.
Annually. So it'll be coming up again in January.
And that's fine to wait. That's the council's prerogative. I can tell you from our standpoint, that's going to move Mitchell behind. We're
But
here.
you already told us you're 2 years out.
Right, so.
For anything today.
For
So
anything-
now you're telling me if we don't act now, you're pushing us out 2 years farther beyond.
We can't make that decision. What we're saying is the farther it gets bumped, the farther it gets bumped for us.
I'd refine that and say, you know, we were first in the doors of this building 9 months ago. So from our position, we're
Where were
already-
you when we were having the
We're
discussion
already
on
9
chart
months.
what we were going to charge?
What?
You should have
Well-
been here when we were having the discussion on what we were going to charge.
Well, we did watch online, and we knew Justin was heavily involved with the league negotiations, and a lot of that had already been decided. So we chose to engage. At that time, we were here the next day, actually, in Neil's office, had a great discussion the very next day at 11 a.m. So we were here, and we were engaged with the city at that time and prior to that. So we did know about it. We were working with staff.
Anything
Stephanie,
else?
why don't you start collecting that information, and then when you've got it, why don't you bring it back to council, and then we can decide if we want to address it
Yep.
immediately or wait till the annual fees are looked at.
And I think we do those actually in November, so, for the upcoming year.
And one more point of emphasis, if I may. Obviously, it's the council's prerogative to deal with these issues in whatever priority it deems appropriate. If you do decide to boot it down to next year, though, we'd at least ask that you put a permittable form available on your website, which the ordinance mandates and speaks to anyways. You know, just as a matter of pragmatics, if you have an ordinance on the books, have a permit form that carriers can apply under so that you're not unintentionally hampering carriers from making that investment in your community in the meantime.
And that form is currently in development.
Thank you, council. If there's none other questions, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to working with you and your staff further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There be no further business, we're adjourned.
I do, really do.